Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hot Plates and Grapes podcast. My name is Aaron Mays, and I have with me executive chef Ryan Hardy, my man, and we also have another guest, some lovely red wine as well.
Love that.
Can you explain what we're drinking? And this is a great project you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
What we got going on here?
So this is a bottle of wine that my man Cedric Niskas makes called Vivanter, and Cedric partner with a fashion designer by the name of Rosie Aslan and her husband Max that were really Francophiles and traveled a lot in France, brought a lot of wine back, and the two of them partnered together to make a natural Gamay. And natural wine is kind of having a moment, has had a moment probably for the last 6 or 7 years. But now I think people are really dialing it in, and natural wine by definition is really one that doesn't have a lot of preservatives in it. They're not using sulfites in a major way. It's really just natural stuff, and so it's usually wild fermentation and wild preservatives, and they can make really funky wines.
Yeah, this does have some funk to it.
This I think is a really beautifully balanced stuff. So this is the new project by Cedric and Rosie, and we're really excited to be pouring it in the restaurants. And look, it's lunchtime. Yeah. I thought like a little chilled wine a la Provence I thought would be really cool. So
this is really cool. It's really it's light and it's straight to the point. Salud.
Yeah, I love it.
How's it going? How are you? Everything. How's your
good,
family?
Man. I'm good. Thank you. Long time coming, man. We've been talking about this for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
For those of you out there in the universe who don't know, Aaron and I worked together for the last couple of years, and he was one of the stars at Legacy Records, and I think this was a project that we had spoken about a long time, and so it's taken us a while to get to this point where we're sitting down, and I'm really honored to be here, man. So congrats.
I'm just as stoked. Thank you. Yeah, full. Like, I'm super excited that this is all happening because
thanks, man.
I remember I had the idea, and it just hit me like wildfire, and I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
And then it come the next day, and you're sitting there. And I was like, are you busy? And you were like, kinda. And I was like, great, here's my idea. Here's what I got to say.
I gave you 2 minutes and I was like, you know what, man, why don't you write that up and then get it back to me and we'll have a conversation.
Yeah.
And you did, like, very
perfect.
thoroughly. Yeah. It's funny, as we were setting up, I came across a receipt outside from the last night we were open, and it was just hanging out there behind the bar. Because we're actually shooting this in Ty's place. For those of you out there who don't know, Ty's is the bar behind the bar, and most special place. Shout out to Ty and to Jay and the whole family for this.
Oh yeah.
But the receipt was like a party. I mean, it was $1,000 or something, and somebody had drank great champagne, fried chicken, had a ton of tequila cocktails at the end of the night.
Yeah.
And I just had this kind of flashback to like, oh yeah, like remember when we were partying like that, It was almost 6 months ago, to the day. And
I think 6 months.
6 months.
Wow.
What's it like? So, so how am I? I'm good. I'm very thankful. I think these moments in life help you take pause and really take account of the things that are the most important to you.
Exactly.
We can't control so many things in the world right now. There's a lot that's going on.
Yeah.
People are protesting, obviously. Politicians are all over the map,
playing all their cards, doing what they can.
Yeah, I mean the ecology of the universe is a little bit out of whack right now, and so we can't control a lot of that stuff. We can only control ourselves and our emotions, and we can control our reaction to the environment. And it took me a few days to kind of come to grips with that and say, okay, everything is uncertain. The businesses may or may not make it. We're gonna control what we can control, and spending time with my family. I have 2 young kids, and my beautiful wife Agatha, and spending time with them during this has been such a gift and such a blessing that at a very critical time. They're 5 and 3, and so it's been priceless for us. And so very difficult as a business owner, very difficult as a leader, very emotional to see something that I've spent the last 20 years building to get to today. And at the same time, you have to realize, look, this is about pivoting, and this is about growing, and this is about personal growth and those kind of things. And so you take a hard look at yourself and say, how did we get here, and how do we move from here? And so I have to say I'm well. Thank you for asking.
Of course, man. Anytime. How are you looking to continue out of all this, though? Like, it is tough, and I can imagine since that day, it's just been. You probably may have lost a couple hairs. I don't know.
Hair's gotten longer and a lot grayer. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think what I had to take a look at with our we're really fortunate, by the way, to have just an incredible executive team. We as a restaurant group. For those of you who don't know, we have Legacy Records, which we're sitting in now. We had Charlie Bird and Pasquale Jones as well, and a few other small projects, a cafe, a little wine store, and those kind of things. And we had to really take note of all those and say, where are we with each one of these? What does it look like? What does the future look like? What did we do well up to this point, and what did we didn't, or what did we not? And how do we, to use a phrase that's been used a lot in the last 5 years, but how we pivot from here?
Right.
And it was really emotional. We had 250 employees at the date of COVID, and we had to let almost every single one of them go.
Yeah.
And it was very difficult to do that. I cried for a couple of days.
I feel that. It was a tough reality to, getting a tough email.
Yeah.
Keep faith. And then the situation in the world got worse and worse.
It got worse every 6 hours. I mean, it was getting bad. And so you look at it and say, all right, how do we learn from this? What can we do to? I've always really tried to focus on horizontal and vertical growth, and an example of that is horizontal is where you open multiple restaurants, right? And vertical growth is how you support each one of those restaurants, and so you have these wine projects that aren't necessarily tied to a restaurant, but they're individual projects that create growth in a brand or growth for individuals. And so we've gone back and really spent a lot of time saying, okay, the reality is we're probably not going to do a lot of horizontal growth in the next few years.
But very tough.
Yeah, but we can do a lot of brand growth, and we're really fortunate that because we're a small enough restaurant group that we're nimble still.
Yeah.
We don't have 17 leases that are out there that we're trying to negotiate, but we're not small enough where we're an individual restaurant. So we're able to have a finance team, we're able to have an HR team, we're able to have an operations team, and that whole thing has saved us in the long run here, is to play that long game when the chips are out and gone and you got no money left. It's like, how are we going to get through this? Has been in some strange way like you dig back into your entrepreneurial roots, and there's something that you kick back into high gear in this like efficiency, and you go back to your work ethic, and you go back to the things that are absolutely your core principles, and you say, okay, does this support any of those things? If it doesn't, it's gone.
Throw it out.
And et cetera. And you look at the positions that we're hiring. Does that help? Are we furthering the cause? Are we supporting the brand so we can bring more people back in? Because we obviously want desperately to bring our friends and family back in to eat, but also our friends and family to work. Because one of the things as I started on this journey was I really set out to cook food.
Yeah.
Like that's what you do. You're a chef. You love food, and so you're a real nerd for it. And if you're a wine person, you set out to drink great wine, and you want to open great wine, and you want to talk about great wine, et cetera. And the reality, like so many companies that are out there, they realize that their actual core business is not actually what they set out to do. Airlines are not actually in the airline business anymore. They're in the credit industry. That, like airline miles and credit cards. That's what they actually do. That's where they make all their money, right? Mm-hmm. And so I realized, I think prior to COVID, but it really hit home at COVID, is that we're not in the food business. We're not in the, we don't just sell a table. And that's the way I started out at Charlie Bird. We sell hospitality, and hospitality starts with us first, and then it goes to our employees, right? Yeah. And that's the most important thing. And if that core is tight and solid, then it goes on from there. And so that's been hard, because there's employees that want to come back to work. We don't have positions. People are out of it at work. They're frustrated too. Everybody's suffering right now, and so we're trying to go back to that core and really be present as much as we can with it. So
it's a time thing, and like nobody knows when. So it's tough to not know what's gonna happen next.
Yeah.
But you do what you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of when, like, you just you want to just cook food.
Yeah.
So you were born and raised in Kentucky.
Yeah.
You're a proclaimed numbers guy. So you went to University of Kentucky for accounting.
Yeah.
But then somewhere along the lines, you went straight to San Francisco and started working at Rubicon.
Yeah.
And then at 25, you worked at the Rustique Bistro in Aspen, which got you the Esquire's Best New Restaurant. That's super solid. Then you worked for Mark Miller at the Coyote Cafe in Santa Fe. then on to Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts, where you won Best New Chef in New England. And then you founded the second slow food chapter in New England, which was super cool. I'm a huge fan of slow food. It should be that way. And then by the end of that year, you were back in Aspen at Little Nell.
The Little Nell, yeah.
And you started the Rendezvous Farm, which is extra cool in my opinion. I don't know how you did that in that cold. You did Italian charcuterie, produce, and so much more.
Yeah.
In an area that wasn't getting that at all. And then you took your talents to New York City.
Yeah.
Charlie Bird, Pasquale Jones, Legacy, Ada's, the rest is history.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a major. When I was at Institute of Culinary Education, I went to the career fair and I talked to every group in that room. There's like over 100-something restaurants affiliated. And the only one that felt like home was Legacy. I talked to them. Cool. They were like, what are you looking for? Like, we're looking for, Amber was like, we're looking for chefs. I was like, I want to be in the front. She's like, we can work with you. Nobody else was trying to work with me. Yeah. They're like, come on by. So immediately I felt that culture embrace. And so like, in those 20 years, you've done a lot. Yeah. Like you've accomplished, and I feel like you've started like.
Thanks, man.
I'm trying to figure out how'd you get there. How'd you get to like what made you change from accounting to food? How'd you get?
To be honest, I grew up in Kentucky. Definitely a blue collar family. My father was in marketing and had a really good job and with a great kind of fast food company. My mother was also in marketing and did PR work early in my life, and then she kind of stopped to be our mom for a number of years, and then she went back and went into government work, actually, in politics. And which she was on the wrong side of the aisle. Mom, I love you, but she influenced me greatly in terms of my love of politics and my love of understanding government and those kind of things. And so she educated as well, and so I got it on both sides, and both of them really loved food. And when I was raised, we had a ton of chores to do. That was just kind of, my father was a military guy. For forever until I don't know, probably the mid 70s when he was in Vietnam for a long time. And so we were raised with discipline, that you had some serious chores to do and you had to get those done. Like there were no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, and so one of them was this garden, and so there was always that I looked forward to it every year. I looked forward to tending to the garden. I looked forward to it seemed huge to me at the time. Nice. It was probably the size of this room, maybe 3 times the size of this room, which was actually a lot when you think about, you're a kid and you got to weed, rows and rows of these kind of things. But we always had fresh produce to put on the table. And when I look back on it now, it's because we didn't have a lot. We were 5 kids. It was less expensive to raise food than it was to go buy food. Exactly. And quite honestly, back then the food in the grocery stores was pretty bad. The tomatoes were all terrible.
You can only imagine.
You could choose lettuce and
We're just now getting to a point where food is like the way it should be.
For sure.
Can imagine.
Yeah. Still, we got a long way to go.
Exactly.
So this is prior to everything being organic and whatnot. So it's it left an indelible print on me, and so that's how I started. And I think as I went through it, I went to Xavier University first, and I didn't know who I was. I think there's a great quote, and I'm not doing it justice, but I'll paraphrase, by Maya Angelou shortly before she passed away, and I forget what year she passed away. She was in her 80s or 90s. But she talked about how you have no idea who you are in your 20s. You start to understand who you want to become in your 30s. You set on that path in your 40s. You become that person in your 50s. Wow. You live that person in your 60s. You're comfortable with that person in your 70s, and you reflect on that person in your 80s, right? And I think I was stuck in that in my 20s. Of course, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I didn't get a lot of guidance at that point in my life. And had I had some guidance, I probably would have studied something very different than what I did. But my mind really worked in ones and zeros, more zeros than ones, I have to say. I didn't have a lot, and so I made it through college. I ended up transferring and finishing at University of Kentucky, really for monetary reasons, and then I moved to the West Coast. I literally the day I graduated, I had the car packed, and I was like, I'm out. Really? I'm done. I'm leaving. Sayonara. And so, I kissed my mom and said, bye, Dad, and I'm out. And I was the last. I was the youngest of 5, and so it was time to go. And so I drove to the West Coast, and I was going to go to graduate school. I went there to get residency and just kind of pursue the things I felt like I started to discover education in my senior year of college. And I thought Washington State and Oregon, I really wanted to go to Alaska. I didn't quite make it. And I thought, well, these are as good as I can get. They're completely different than anything I know. They were stunningly beautiful. There were rainforests and cliffs. And I was an avid outdoor guy. And so I spent a ton of time hiking and camping and fishing and doing all kinds of things.
I couldn't really imagine being out
there. Yeah, it was great. And so
atmosphere.
I wanted to spend time there. And I actually, sadly, ended up homeless rather quickly because I didn't have any money. I was very naive. Growing up where I did, I wasn't well-traveled. We used to say we had a 6-hour radius. If we could drive there within 6 hours, we could go. That was pretty much it growing up. And so
I understand that, yeah.
I don't think I was on an airplane. I think I was on an airplane once before the age of 21. So it was not like today at all.
Yeah.
And so I ended up out there, and the homeless thing really helped redirect me. I think it happens. We'll get into this later because I'm very passionate about it, particularly living in New York City. But we have this lens that we look through. We're like, oh well, that person's homeless. They must be a drug addict, and or they made their own choices, bad choices, or
totally
whatever it is. And the reality was, for me at that time, I went out there. I probably had $500 in my pocket. Didn't know that was a lot of money to me.
$1.
That was a lot of money to me. I didn't know, and I couldn't find a place to rent. Suddenly I was, sleeping in my car, sleeping in a tent. One thing led to another. Money runs out.
You were roughing it.
You're going to shelters to get food, et cetera. As you're like, oh man, this is real. And I remember I went to a gas station and I had coins in the car, and I bought a sleeve of Oreos. Still one of my favorite foods. And I literally bought a sleeve of Oreos with change, paid for it with pennies and dimes and nickels. And that was a real, I can still remember that was a trigger point for me. I was like, I can't do this. I always believed in myself. I knew I could get over it, but I was like, something's got to change here. I got to figure this out. And so that was, only for a couple of months, but it was very influential on me. And I think I always had the work ethic, but I had seen the bottom, and I was like, I'm never. Ever going to go back to this. I will work endlessly for the rest of my life if I have to provide. And so that got me going. And I bailed on graduate school as I just kind of realized I think I didn't have any money. I certainly didn't have any money to go to school. How was I going to get into school? I didn't come from the type of background that had bank accounts and trust funds and those kind of things where I could just get loans and those things. It was not easy. So I moved to San Francisco. I went down there and stayed in a youth hostel.
Yeah.
I think I was the oldest person in there because I was still in my 20s, but everybody else was like Europeans traveling at 17, hooking up. Yeah.
I got to make it in life.
I was like, man, I just want to sleep on the top bunk.
Yeah.
And San Francisco was tough. I mean, that was the late 90s. It was every city still has its rough parts, but it was rough. I mean, the Tenderloin there was like seedy, and it was strip clubs and heroin users, and it was tough. And so I rented an apartment. Somebody took pity on me. I'll never forget this couple that was a gay couple that I was with a girlfriend who wasn't there at the time, and they said, you need an apartment. And I said, yeah. And they were like, yeah, we see that. How much money you have? I was like, I don't have a lot of money. And they're like, don't worry about it. Just you move in. When you can pay us, you pay us. Wow. And so I got a break. And
it's a huge break.
It was a huge break.
Do you still talk to them? Do you still keep up?
No, I haven't in years. And they were great. They owned a couple of buildings in the city,
cool.
and owned a couple of buildings in the Castro. I lived in the Tenderloin and Post and Leavenworth. I'll never forget the place. It was great. And my girlfriend moved down at the time, and we started a new life together, and I started cooking, and I never looked back. I loved it. It was what I always went back to. Cooks are, I think at that point, cooks were pirates. It was a band of brothers in a way.
They're good. Nice. So when you consider the turning point in that, once you started cooking at Rubicon, you're there for how long? Not that long, right?
I was at Rubicon for, I don't know, maybe 14 months, something like that.
Yeah,
not that long.
Moved straight on to something bigger than yourself.
I was really fortunate. I think that each of us has, we each have goals, and I think we each have skills. Everybody has the skill. There's not a single person on the planet that doesn't have something that they're uniquely good at. Right. I think we often say in cooking that you cook with all 5 senses. You can hear the sound of the pan cooking properly. If it's cooking improperly, you know with your back to it that you have to turn around and fix it.
Right.
And not a lot of people have that ability, or they need to learn it still. And so I just had it. I don't know if I got it from childhood or what, but that's basically my only skill in life.
That's good though. That's really
And and so I rose very quickly in that kitchen and did well. I was really lucky. I was surrounded with people who wanted to stab you pretty much every day, but these were incredibly talented cooks. Everybody in there went on to great careers, and that was a magic time in our business where people were leaving that kitchen and moving to New York City. And everybody knew that San Francisco was an incredible cooking city, except it was just less than New York City.
Right.
And
it's
so
always, to me, it's always going to be.
I still believe that.
Yeah.
No offense to San Francisco, because I love that city, and I love going back to it. And I still think there's incredible restaurants, and the food scene there is just amazing.
Yeah.
So no disrespect there, but I think New York was tougher, edgier, had much harsher critics in New York. It had a much more sophisticated palate. Everybody ate out in New York City. It wasn't a car culture like it was in San Francisco. So New York City was really the goal for me. And so that's where I learned, like, oh yeah, the best cook in the kitchen just left to go be poissonnier at Danielle in New York City.
Nice.
That's what I want to do.
That's good.
If that's what it takes, that's what I want to do. And so it took me, I don't know, probably 10 more years to get to that point. It took me 3 or 4 years to get to a point where I was at Rustique in Aspen. The chef owner Charles Dale had kind of instituted his second restaurant and put me in charge of it, and we did some great things there. And I was lucky, as you mentioned, to we won best new restaurants, one of the top 10 best new restaurants there, and that put me on the map. I think when I got to New York, it was 2001, and I got to New York, came to do a dinner here, and to accept this award. And I looked, and I was shoulder to shoulder with some of these incredible chefs.
Yeah.
New York City, certainly around the country. And when you're standing in a room, you're like, oh man, like, this is the big leagues.
I'm here.
Like, I made it. Like, this is the big leagues. Like, yeah. And so I skipped over going to be poissonnier and whatnot at some of the great classic restaurants where you really had to cut your teeth and whatnot. I just skipped it. And that was a positive and a negative for me. I was like, oh man, now I have to teach myself. I got to educate. I need to travel. I have to learn. These kind of things. But I had arrived. I was like, okay, now what are you going to do? And so it took me a couple of more years to start to piece together the career, work for the right people, learn the business end of it as much. I had the business mind, but I needed to kind of put it together with the cooking end of it.
Centralize the focus a little bit.
And so it took me around. I think being at the Little Nell, I have to give props and shout outs to not only the Crown family but the whole Little Nell team there, because starting there, the wine director was Richard Betts, still one of my favorite people on the planet and best friends, and he saw something in me. It was like, this guy's different. He doesn't just play the game in the same way that everybody else plays the game. He wants to think differently. He wants to cook differently. He wants to push the envelope at the time away from some of the fine dining stuff and really back to authentic dining and really ingredient focused, vegetable focused, really technique focused stuff that wasn't just about modern cuisine, which was becoming all the rage.
Of course,
and
most people follow the trend, but go against the grain. Stick to what you know, stick to yourself, and it'll always pull through.
Yeah,
I find.
So I was really fortunate at that time to have a carte blanche. I had there was a checkbook. It's like, oh, you need new silverware, great, right? Whatever you want. You need new china, great. You want to buy what? Oh, great, buy that. And we did well. Our costs were always really in line, but it was because they gave me the freedom that I was able to then to do all of that. And so I started the farm independently. I tried to get them to do it for me. They wouldn't. I started the farm independently because I was thirsty for more, and buying crappy greens from the distributor in Denver just didn't do it for me. And so we set out with a guy by the name of Mike Waters to start a farm. I'd been researching this. I'd written a business plan for it. It was kind of my first business plan that I'd ever written. And we bought, I think at first it was 23 acres, and then we bought the place next door. Maybe it was 17 acres, and we bought the place next door. We ended up with 38 acres.
Wow.
And we had pigs, and we had 1,000 egg-laying hens that we did the whole pasta program with the Little Nell with all those eggs, and we had pigs, sheep. It was cool, man. It was good. It was some of the great years of my life, I have to say. Yeah, special.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Out of all that, you realize you're in the room, you're there. So going out, like dining, what was that? What was that first time sitting down where you recognize that's Chef Ryan Hardy right there? Like
that still doesn't happen, by the way, Aaron.
Oh, no way, it has to.
It was funny. I many years later, I think it was 2011, maybe 2010, maybe 2011. Here I had this farm. I was doing good things, I think, in terms of just our career, and I had just a kind of a geyser of talent that was coming up underneath me.
Yeah.
Not because of me, just like people were just being drawn to it, and I think that was really special, and I felt it, right?
Yeah.
So I was thinking about moving to New York City, and at the time I started. I took kind of a year off. I went through a separation, and in that year I traveled, and I went to France, I went to Spain, I went to Italy a few times, and I just I was in the Little Nell, but I was still kind of taking personal time.
Yeah.
And I started dating my now wife, Agatha. And we came to New York, one of our first dates in New York together. And she's like, I'm going to take this great restaurant just opened that's not too far away from my apartment. I was like, great. And it was Jean-Georges' new restaurant. And he had opened a farm-to-table restaurant. And I just put my head in my hands and said, oh, my God, you got to be kidding me. Because here I am, I own a farm, and I'm making salami, I'm raising pigs, I'm like literally feeding the chickens myself, et cetera. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like Jean-Georges, like how many restaurants does this guy have around the globe? And he's going to open a farm-to-table restaurant, oh, God. And we went there, and we waited. It was so popular. ABC Kitchen was so popular, and I happen to love design and architecture and interior design, and so ABC, the store, was one of the pinnacles in New York City of just coolness in terms of interior design, and so I was really pumped this whole thing was coming together, and we get there, and this is kind of true to form for my wife and I now, is we never have a reservation anywhere, and so we showed up, and they're like, yeah, it's gonna be like 2 hours, and we're like, cool, we'll just have like a bottle of wine, and we just kind of hung out in the corner. So we got it. Then we waited 2 hours, and they finally put us at a table, kind of off to the side. And we sit down. And, they come over and pour water first. Come over, and pour the water. And the guy pouring the water goes, Chef Ryan? And I look up, and it was one of my back waiters from the Little Nell.
Oh,
it was
nice.
Literally had left the Little Nell, moved to New York City that week, and this was his first day on the job.
Wow.
And I was like one of the first tables. He's like, Chef Ryan, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And so cover was blown, but at the same time,
tried to move incognito.
Yeah. It's like I just wanted a quiet table in the corner, like be on a date.
Pour of water.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not supposed to do that.
We didn't make it past the water before. So they were like, "Hang on, we got a better table for you," and they kind of shuffled things around.
Yeah.
And
nice.
I became good friends with Chef Dan there. It was it to this day is still one of my favorite restaurants in New York City. I love it. And shout out to Jean-Georges and Dan. Just killed it. I mean, the food was incredible. Dan's obviously gone on to do his own place, Loring Place, which is also a great restaurant. But
nice.
But good days, fun time.
Right. So how does that so how's your dining out experience here in the city compared to your childhood? Because I know you said you had a very routine chores.
Yeah.
Was the etiquette your dinner service at your house kind of the same way, setting the table, etc.?
Yeah. I have to say, it's funny because I've talked to my brothers and sisters since then. I'm 45, so 30 years removed, almost 40 years removed from those days, and they say, man, you must have had a really different perception than we did, growing up, because I think my memories are just different from theirs, and so it's funny how nature kind of you craft your own personality in your head, maybe, or you have your own story of what things were, but yeah, we always had dinner together as best we could. My mom put dinner on the table at probably 6:30 every single night, and every child had to be an active part of the meal. So somebody had to set the table, somebody had to clear the table, somebody else had to do the dishes, somebody had to go to the garden and get this stuff. And we each kind of developed a skill. I remember my sister Kelly, I think, she was really good at baking these quick breads, and I think she made omelets. I think that was her skill. And I was really good at making this raspberry Danish thing, and I was really good at making pancakes, or whatever.
That's
It was
good,
like,
yeah.
so we all had these like skills that were like, no, that's not your skill, Ryan. Time for you to take over.
Yeah.
And that was cool. And I don't know. I don't think it was out of like, I don't think my mom or my dad either, for that matter, really meant for that to become. It was just part of the daily life, and everybody had to be a part of it in order to pull this off. And so yeah, it meant something. But we never dined out ever.
Really?
A big night for us was when my dad brought home Long John Silver's. That was like,
man, I can agree.
I
with you on
love
that.
Long John Silver's. I haven't had it
Yes.
in years and years and years, but that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Because it was fast food. First of all, it was fried. Of course, it wasn't the healthiest thing, but also just beyond that, it just cost money, and we didn't have the money to eat out all the time,
Right.
so we never ate out.
Yeah.
I don't know. My mom would probably disagree with me, but I would say, once, twice a year.
Yeah, it was probably like an event, maybe meeting family or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
That type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I can agree with you. I didn't really start eating out until my mom remarried later on in my life.
Yeah.
And, the more money was involved. But
Right.
My mom was single. She was queen of leftovers. She
Yeah.
was cooking. We were eating the same thing 2 or 3 times.
And look at you. You end up in culinary school. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So going into, let's say, New York, let's see Charlie Bird. I really want to speak about that because I find that's like, in the modern era,
Yeah.
the most attention is on that place. If
Yeah,
I talk to
thanks.
anybody, I mention Legacy, there's like, oh, where? And I tell them, oh, okay. I say Charlie Bird, and they go, I got it. Okay,
yeah.
I got
Yeah.
it. Pretty much anybody I can talk to.
Yeah.
So going into that, even who you are before, what was your original vision going
Yeah.
in, and like, how did it change, and like, what affected those changes to lead you to pretty much to this point?
Wow. I moved to New York because I wanted something different. My partner at the time was Robert Bohr, and Robert and I had both worked in these fine dining restaurants, right, with giant wine lists, and I think everybody expected that we would do something kind of fancier, and we'd have big wine list and and whatnot. And what we both really wanted from an experience, but what I really wanted from a food experience was exactly the opposite. I wanted a place where at the time I really felt like the pendulum was swinging. I wanted to go away from the James Beard restaurants and the cover of Food and Wine magazine and the Michelin stars that were being rolled out and whatnot. I was like, man, I don't want any part of that. I wanted to be the avant-garde. I wanted to be the antithesis of that. I wanted to be the jazz player to rock and roll, right? And I was in love with New York City. I always say I had an affair with New York City. No matter where I was, when I came back to New York, I felt like I could become the person I wanted to be.
Right, agreed.
Yeah.
And
so I had this vision that we would cook food that would be excellent ingredients, but it was going to go on really kind of crappy plates, like intentionally. That it was going to be really stripped down to where you'd be like, damn, this is great, but you didn't have to pay up for that experience.
Right.
And at the same time, we really wanted to drink out of great wine glasses and have great wine and take all the experience that we had, but not, do the opposite, not put it into fine dining and white tablecloths, and do the opposite and make it really just fun and cool. At the time, my favorite restaurants were not the top ranked restaurants in New York City. They were not the big box restaurants, if you will.
Right.
They were not the best restaurateurs that you knew of. Instead, they were the Franny's in Brooklyn that I just shout out. I can't even tell you, if I had all the money back that I spent at Franny's over the 4 or 5 years that I ate there, I could put both my kids through college.
Wow.
Like, how did I spend $1,000 on pizza?
That place must be good.
Man, I loved it. I loved it. And I thought they were really doing incredible things at the time. You know why? They were doing something different. Yeah, it was pizza, it was Italian food, it was pasta, et cetera. But it was super. It was really, really great. And there was a handful of other restaurants. Mary's Fish Camp, I thought, was just so cool because it was just irreverent. And I think at the heart of it, I was always a smart ass. And I was always like, I didn't want to do what everyone else wanted to do. I wanted to do something different that was my own. And so Charlie Bird really stemmed out of that. And for whatever reason, we hit a nerve, I think, in the city, but just with my team, with our families, et cetera, was that it was the first of its kind. And so when we opened it, the idea was it was kind of Mediterranean, it was definitely very Italian influenced food. the wine list was much more kind of French focused with some Italian kind of spotted in.
Yeah.
And Robert was in the front of house. I was in the back of house. We built the whole thing literally with our hands, and we had one builder. This guy came in and built the whole thing. I mean, it was just cool. And so it was very organic in its approach.
Yeah.
I was going to thrift shops and antique shops in Brooklyn and in Queens and stuff to find, like, I want these two lights, but I want them to feel like they've been here forever. And so I would go find these things and bring them back.
Wow.
And I found this old antique bird cage in a store on, I think it's like in East Village on like maybe 12th Street, 11th Street, and I had a neon sign made inside of a bird cage. Like, these little things, like, you just couldn't go out and buy it. And I felt like so much of New York City was built in a design studio on a whiteboard, and people put it together, and then they handed over papers to say, this is going to be your restaurant. Yeah. And people bought it. And so you walked into these restaurants and you're like, you just kind of looked up and you're like, oh, okay. You built a Tuscan restaurant with Tuscan beams in the ceiling. They were awesome, great restaurants, but they didn't vibe with me. And I wanted something that was more real. And the music theme really came out of that, because when we were building it and we were there every day, I was down in the kitchen. It was a terrible kitchen, which we later rebuilt.
Yeah, you showed me
the before and after. Yeah, it was nuts. And we were down there and we were listening to old hip hop. It was like fun to listen to great old stuff. Listen to Wu-Tang, listen to Run DMC, like taking it all the way back, and just like Sugar Hill Gang, like all this is kind of like crazy.
Some Keros one in there.
Yeah, just like, because Robert and I are the same age, but we put it together in a way that was just kind of fun, this whole restaurant. And then the day that we were about to open, the night before, I said, man, you know what? It's funny. We never talked about what music are we gonna play. We put on these like great speakers and we put in more than we could afford in terms of a sound system. Anyway, we ended up playing hip hop, and it was like, look, man, we're gonna play what we've been doing this whole time. We built this restaurant listening to this. This is who we are, and we both love it. Don't deny that. Let's just do it. And so we played it loud and proud, going forward. And we both felt like, I felt like an outsider. And Robert he grew up in New Jersey. He is a New Yorker, but he's never been a New Yorker, right? And so if you're not born here, suddenly people have a chip on their shoulder against you. It's like whatever. And so I think each of us had our own kind of outlook on it, and it just kind of clicked. I think people got it, and this idea of like, wow, this place is like a party. Yeah. And what we hit on, and what we always kind of believed in, was that if you create something that isn't about any one thing, it wasn't about the wine, it wasn't about the food, it wasn't about the music, it was about the sum of the parts being more. Right. So that people had multiple things to come for. So some people would come and be like, no man, the food was just great, you're gonna love it. It's all these kind of like, you can have a ton of share plates, or you can have your own individual pasta, or you can, whatever. But this guy's like, really pushing the envelope just kind of in the wrong direction. Like I was going, the opposite of what everybody else was doing. I wasn't trying to recreate a dish to something they'd never seen before. Right. I was trying to take the dishes that they knew and loved and make them great, Right. And so people would come for the food, or they would come for the wine, or they were coming in because they love music, and they sat at the bar and just like, we had suddenly major artists that were showing up. I was like, Robert, come downstairs, he'd be like, hey, yo, Nas is sitting on table 30. I'd be like, Nas is sitting on table 30. Are you kidding me? Casually, yeah. And it would blow me away that these people were coming in, and they weren't coming in because they were friends of somebody else and they got a reservation. They just came organically, and I was so impressed by that.
I find no other music you can play in a restaurant is like hip hop. You're in New York, you could play hip hop. Yeah. Everybody's gonna be down for that, but I guess at the time it was maybe a little against the grain. It was like play September, play the Michael Jacksons, play all the hits, play the top 40 from the 80s, 90s. Yeah, keep them coming because that's all people know. Yeah, friendly. Yeah, they're not in your face. You don't, But now that the hip hop's there, and you realize it's not that bad, even though they are cursing. Like I remember at Legacy, and I was like, oh, this music, it's kind of foul. It's I know. Well, that's what kind of what we do. Yeah. I was like, well, how's the food? They're like, great. Like, how's the wine? Like, great. I was like, perfect.
I think one of the things that I really loved in life is we became really good friends with a gallery owner by the name of Jeff Lee, who's just brilliant beyond brilliant. I spoke with Jeff. Yeah, he's an extraordinary person. Shout out to you, Jeff. And he's part of the Ryan Lee Gallery. He and his partner Mary, and he really opened up my eyes. We had been to a ton of shows, and we'd been in the art world just as fans for a fair amount of years, Agatha and I. But getting some of that stuff, like peeling the curtain back and being introduced to some of these artists and being introduced to the world of art was really extraordinary to me. And I had never been in that room.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
In the room where it happened, if you will. And so I was like, wow, this is extraordinary. And so I think that because I'm not a New Yorker, taking an outsider's look at what New York culture was to create Charlie Bird, I think was one of the few perspectives you can take, because it's almost like if you're too much in there, it's like you're too in it. Yeah. But the hip hop was
you rode the line.
Yeah, we rode the line. Hip hop was not unique. Other restaurants were playing hip hop. In fact, I think actually ABC Kitchen was actually playing hip hop, but everybody played it a little reserved, a little quieter. Like you said, they edited it and they made sure there was nothing that was too outlandish. We played. I remember the third day. I can still picture it. I'm standing. I go up to middle of service. The place is bumping, et cetera. And it was Wu-Tang. I think it's Meth for Chef came on. And I don't know, for all you listeners out there, if you remember the beginning of that is a little dialogue between the two. And I looked across the bar, and Robert just kind of cracked up, and I was like, "Is anybody listening to this? I mean, this is beyond foul. This is like pornographic. Like, this is nuts, man." Yeah, exactly. And we just kind of, smiled and nodded, and people ate it up. And, now we actually avoid that song. And a few other songs we really try and edit down so people, we don't want to offend people. But I think that part, the reason I mentioned the art thing is that art is meant to cause emotion.
Yes.
And so people feel uncomfortable in certain pieces of art. In fact, it was a very big part of our review at Legacy Records. The reviewer felt uncomfortable in front of the art, which is his loss. And quite honestly, Pete Wells, if you're listening out there, really an uneducated piece of literature that he wrote for that. I mean, really uneducated. But he gave us great props on the food and the wine, and et cetera. So thanks, Pete. But I think that idea is it's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. And I think if the music stirs emotion in you, then good. That's good. That's what jazz did, right? That was the basis of jazz. Like, people revolted against jazz when it was taking over America. And jazz is America's gift to the music world.
Look at it now.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, without jazz, you have no hip hop.
Huge.
So you also, I remember reading up saying that Charlie Bird had a difficult time getting off the ground with finding people to help cook. So Agatha's mother came in and helped build that culture of give a familial feel to it. Because I guess people probably thought, hey, you're not a New Yorker. You're here, say, for lack of a better term, capitalizing on New York. And people are now seeing, they thought you're just here for money. And they see Agatha's mother step in and making the pasta with their bare hands. Yeah. I don't know, was she coming in super early to get that done?
Yeah, she would come in twice a day sometimes. But the not being a New Yorker was a really big thing. I think it's less so now. I think people are more understanding. The world has become much more international, I think over the last 10 years. But if you didn't have at least 2 or 3 jobs in New York prior to moving to New York, people thought you were a fraud.
Wow.
And so they would say, "Where were you before this?" That's the first question I got all the time. And I'd be like, "Dude, I just opened my own restaurant. Like, what difference does it matter where I was? You're sitting in it now." And they wanted to know that you had worked for somebody who had respect. And so therefore they could give you that respect. Like, you were a mentee of somebody. And because I had been out of that side of it for so long, I mean, it had been 10, 15 years since I had been underneath somebody. I didn't have a resume that was great for the media. I didn't have a resume that was great for the cooks. I didn't have a resume that was great for the diners, etc. And so that was a real negative, for us, kind of getting started. And I had to find my feet. I'll be honest with you. if Robert and some of our family were sitting here right now, they'd laugh at this because the food was lousy, in the very beginning. Because we were like, those first 3 days, it was hard. We didn't have any cooks. We were trying like hell to get through a service time. We were prepping, et cetera. And we had to get smarter. And so about 3 days in, it was like we changed the menu, then we changed the menu, then we changed, so we just kind of like kept evolving it. But yeah, we couldn't get cooks because people didn't know who we were. They wanted to go work for the names that were out there, and it was incredibly difficult to find people. So yeah, we had both my wife. We got married just after we opened Charlie Bird.
Congrats,
thank God. I had to ask her to
timing.
get engaged prior to opening because I figured if this goes bad, I don't want to lose the restaurant and the girl. And her family just has incredible food culture. She grew up between Italy and the U.S., and her parents are both from Italy. And so I think the idea of having the family come in was really out of necessity because we were just working, 20 hours a day.
Yeah.
We would stay up until 2 or 3 in the morning making pasta. We'd go
That's
home.
intense.
We'd come back at 7, 8 in the morning just to okay, we got to get ahead, And so yeah, Rosa came in. Ollie, by the way, my father-in-law, Agatha's dad, runs a metalworking shop. Did all the metal for the restaurant.
Really?
All the outdoor
great.
dining, pieces. Every piece of metal in the restaurant was done by him at Pasquale Jones as well. And so it was a real familial thing. I had to really lean on family at that point. And so yeah, Rosa came every day, made gnocchi. She made pasta with me. So did Agatha. Agatha would come in too, put the hat on, put the apron on. She was there. She famously came in the middle of service one night. She was having dinner upstairs. And I was so busy, I didn't have a chance to go say hi yet. And she kept saying, hey, can Ryan come say hi to my friends, And we had run out of gnocchi, which is the signature dish at Charlie Bird at the time with the farro salad. And I was in the back furiously making gnocchi, and she came down. She had a beautiful dress on and high heels. And she comes downstairs, and she's like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm like, the board's full of tickets. I'm like, people are everywhere. And she puts an apron on. She takes over. She's like, washes her hand, puts the hat on. She goes to work. And that's what it takes. It takes guts, it takes determination, but you need help in the process. And
that's love above all,
Yeah.
I feel like most people will still kick back.
Exactly.
That seems
it's organic,
right.
And I think we can't be too afraid. We can't put our ego on the line. You have to be able to say, I need help. And so thank God we had that.
Yeah, that's good. So, once you got comfortable, like things were flowing,
yeah.
It was like maybe like year 4 or 5 or year 3, you decided to take on other projects. What made you comfortable to do Pasquale?
Yeah,
and even then, what made you comfortable? I heard some stories about Pasquale.
Yeah,
and so even more stories about Legacy. So when did you find those comfortability zones to, go horizontal like you said,
right.
and then also work vertically?
I think I think authors in general, artists, authors, anybody who's got a creative mind, you have a voice inside of you that kind of guides you and drives you. And you could say the same about athletes. I think just about everybody has it. It just depends on what frequency you're in on. And so I was hooked. Once I opened the farm, I was hooked on being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And the great irony is that the guy that I was partners with in the farm, Mike, was a serial entrepreneur. He had opened, he invented the self-cleaning litter box and the what's it called, like the invisible fence for pets and this kind of things. Like the guy was like, he would constantly inventing new businesses.
Yeah.
And so I learned a ton from him. And I remember one night at dinner asking him, I said, how do you do it? How do you start a new business? Well, I get it. I write the business plan. I get the whole thing. But how do you do it? When does it start? And he looked at me and he laughed and he said, you just do it. You just get up tomorrow and suddenly that's what you're doing. You put $25 in a checking account and you're in business. That's it. There's no magical switch that gets done in a design room, right? Yeah. So I think that I knew almost immediately after we launched Charlie Bird, it was a little rocky for about, probably 2 months. And maybe not even that long, but we kind of hit it by midsummer. We were in good stride. And so we opened, I think it was June 4th, 2013. And I'll never forget, it was the holidays. I think it was Christmas week. I sat on table 1 at Charlie Bird, and a place around the corner that was really great had closed. It was a great bar, had closed. And I was like, we're going to take that spot and we're going to do pizzeria there. And everybody at the table was like, yeah. It was like staff there. They're like, yeah, that's amazing. I was like, we're going to do, and because I had love for all these great pizzerias, 824 in San Francisco, Franny's, I was in love with all the different pizzerias around the city, and I'd spent so much time in Italy. eating lots and lots of that kind of stuff, focaccia and pizza and bread and those kind of things. And I was like, we have a voice, we have an opinion on this, and I think we could do something cool. Why isn't there great pizza and wine in New York City? There wasn't. Marta wasn't open at the time. Certainly not Martina. There really wasn't. There were a lot of great pizzerias out there, with all due respect, but they weren't doing it. And the great places in Brooklyn that still do great pizza didn't have great wine programs, and you couldn't get red wine that was the right temperature, or they didn't have great glassware. They'd serve it to you in a tumbler, or those kind of things. And so, which is cool, and that was fun. But if you really wanted a great bottle of wine and you wanted to eat pizza and have fun with it, where did you go? And so that was the idea. And so it was 6 months after we opened Charlie Bird, we kind of laid the plans to start that. And it took us a couple of years to find a spot. Yeah, 2013. Awesome. We opened it in 2015.
Yeah.
And so it took time. And the irony of it is that we actually started planning legacy before we even opened Pasquale Jones.
No way.
We were on the hook for this space and this building then, and it took us 3 years to build this place. And so we were in meetings before we even finished Pasquale Jones. Yeah, I remember January of that year being in meetings.
And the operations team wasn't even as close as.
We didn't have an operations team. Yeah, that was it. It was like Robert was running wine, Grant was running wine at the time, and we had a bookkeeper, and that was all. So we were really running around, planning the stuff. So so Pasquale Jones was fun, and we found a great chef in the process, and we put together a really great team. But opening that was, oh my God, it was just crazy. It was behind schedule, and we had all these parties booked in the holidays, and we pulled it off. Our first night, the wood ovens weren't hooked up.
Oh man!
And so we put a candle inside the wood ovens to make them look like they were glowing.
Half of the restaurant industry.
We apologized. We're like, hey, by the way, there's no pizza tonight. We're just doing some other stuff, and so we did cool pasta, roast dinner, and made
this is what we're
cool
here
stuff,
for, but don't have it.
Yeah. And so we did it, and we did it. We had a bunch of friends parties booked in the holidays, and we were really lucky and felt great doing it. Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
Nice. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's amazing just to hear the story. 'Cause, you hear from different sides, but to hear from the source is incredible. And I think on that note, it's a perfect time to go to our intermission.
Cool.
Yeah, well, we can do what we need to do, let the wine sit down.
I love it.
Probably
I love it. Get another splash. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
So we'll be back in a couple minutes. And we'll also have a couple words from our sponsors as well. Be back. Thank you. The wine enjoyed on this episode was provided by Parcel Wine Shop, a curated wine shop and online retailer with nationwide shipping, curated by a team of New York's finest sommeliers, located at 511 West 38th Street in Hudson Yards, New York City. Subscribe to Parcel's Wine Drop, a new delivery service featuring 3 hand-selected bottles for $95 per month. Parcel, wine for every scenario. Hey everyone, I hope you are all staying safe and healthy out there. The world right now is a scary place, and I truly believe that everyone should be taking the necessary precautions. In a city like New York, delivery services are literally saving lives. And here at Hot Plates and Grapes, we try to do our part to help as well. Instacart is an online delivery service where you can have a large range of produce, groceries, yes, even wine brought right to your door. Personally, I use it very frequently, and you would love how easy and convenient it is to use. So follow the link in our description box or go to Instagram and click our link tree to start shopping today. And remember, tip your delivery person and stay safe, everyone. Thank you. All right, and we're back. This is the Hot Plates and Grapes podcast. I'm Aaron Mays. I once again have executive chef Ryan Hardy with me, and we had some great conversations about, the grassroots story, how dissecting these great accomplishments he's had and how to get to where he is today. But let's speak about more specifically New York and how that features in your career. So you did mention that New York City's architecture, art, and design plays a huge role in your inspiration. Is it why you came to New York City specifically, or did you, once again, were you chasing the opportunity to be in the same realm as all these great chefs in New York at the time?
I think early in my life, I would have said the latter. I think I wanted to be in the conversation. I think that was important to me. And what really drove me to New York was was that love of art and design and music and culture overall.
Yeah.
If someone had coached me early on in my life, I probably wouldn't have ended up doing what I do now. I would have ended up as an architect, or I would have ended up in design in some capacity, something like that, because I just truly love graphic design and architectural design, interior design, all those things, and just engineering in general. I just love it. I get excited. I walk into an architectural studio and I get really pumped. I was really drawn to New York for that, and I think that the idea of being in and amongst all these other people who had similar likes to me was really enthralling. It became more powerful to me than just the drive for food. And so I have to say that I think who I am now, I'm as much in love with that as I am with food and hospitality. And what I love about what we do for a living is that all these things blend together. Exactly. And so, the New York that I know and love now is less about the gritty part of New York that I moved here for and fell in love with, 10 plus years ago. It is a bit of a phoenix, kind of coming out. And so I'm impressed. I'm excited about doing more projects in the future, because I love that part of it, kind of the art and design segment of it. So I came to New York for that. I came because I was inspired by so much of it. It's how do you if you don't grow up here, if you've never seen New York City and you come into the city, you come across the George Washington Bridge on a sunny day and you see the city, it is awe-inspiring in a way that so many of us who spend time here we just take it for granted. You see the Statue of Liberty out there in the water, you're like, oh my God, this thing actually existed. And then I wanted to be that. I wanted to be here. I wanted to be part of it. I wanted to leave my mark. I wanted to set a stone, if you will, in the city. And so that's, I think maybe it's been my driving force.
I totally agree with you on that. My mother's from Mount Vernon.
Yeah.
So I would come here so often to see my grandmother and a lot of family. Every 3 months I was here, and like you said, going over the GW Bridge, crossing in, sunny day.
Incredible.
We usually go under, we don't want to get stuck in traffic. It's usually an accident.
Right.
But getting through and going through those loops and just seeing the city, I was like, wow, I have to be here.
Yeah.
Then my grandmother passed, it was a little more scarce.
Yeah.
But it just still always pulled me.
Yeah.
And I knew, I was in Virginia Beach, and I was like, what am I going to do? My lease was up, and I was like, I got to go somewhere. I need to go somewhere. And I was like, I know a place that has been calling me since day one.
Yeah.
And I know I want to be a mogul in this industry. And I'm not going to go to Chicago. I'm not going to go to Vegas and try to do that. Like, you have to go to New York.
You have to
like you said, like San Francisco's doing great things, but New York, above all, to me, is just like, it's the mecca of food in the industry.
I think it is. And I mean, I with all due respect to so much what's going on around the world, and I haven't traveled to every corner of the world, but I think New York is at the very least in the conversation, if not the conversation, about it's still the capital. It's still the financial capital. It's still the art capital. It's still the food capital. It's so many things, and there are so many other great cities out there that certainly rival it, maybe even surpass it. But I'm a buyer. Like I'm a buyer on New York, and I 100%. Think that's what I love about New York is just there's no ceilings. You just keep going.
Yeah. I totally agree with you on that one. In reference to the hospitality industry in New York, is it the diversity of cuisine, the expertise, the fact that you can go to Jackson Heights and be in a full Desi community, and then go to Red Hook and be in a different community, and then go to Crown Heights and be in like a Caribbean community? Is that something that like kind of keeps you here because you can pretty much travel the world within?
It's incredible.
A 30-minute train
incredible.
ride. Yeah.
I love, because I live in Manhattan and I spend most of my time downtown because the restaurants obviously are 38th Street, like it or not, is still downtown relative to the size of Manhattan.
right.
And I spend a lot of time in Chinatown. I love it.
Yeah.
My wife and I go out there, semi-frequently when the world was normal. And so, I love to be able to travel the globe in New York. I think that's really incredible. Yeah. The hospitality side of it, and I think this is a kind of a special moment, is a few years ago I was at an event, and I was actually speaking with Danny Meyer about this, and Danny was doing a panel, and we were talking about, he did a panel on what hospitality is and kind of all the things that he uses to help define it for his staff. And I I told him, I was like, you know what I think hospitality is it's everything that can't be Instagrammed. That's hospitality, right?
Yeah.
It's all of the intangibles that we can't put our finger on. It's not the table, it's how we serve the table. It's not the wine, it's the environment around it that allows that to exist, right? If I put blaring sirens in your ear and said, drink this wine, it doesn't matter whether it's $5 or $500, right? It's not going to be enjoyable. It has to be in an environment. Yeah. And so I think more than ever right now in New York City, all of that stuff, it removes the color of your skin. It removes the gender. It removes so much because it's not about the physicality. It's about the spirit that you bring to it. It's about the energy. It's about the smile. It's about everything else that isn't the physical you. And so it's about being selfless. And I think, one of the things that I'm most excited about in our business right now is as much as we have going on trying to come out of COVID, is the team members who we do have with us, and the collaborations that we're doing, therein. And, we just hired a guy by the name of Adam Leonti is just an incredible chef. Yeah. And Dave Metz, who's been with us for a long time, are two
Let's
guys.
Go.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go Mets.
Yeah.
And Dave really is our operations chef. He really makes things happen behind the scenes. I mean, this guy just works his heart out every day. He's extraordinary. And Adam is just a genius of culinary stuff. And so we've brought him on as the director of culinary to really help us run each kitchen, really be the kind of creative force as I step up into more of a kind of a CEO role. Right. And one of the things that I really wanted to do as we reformulate our restaurants coming out is we have to talked about in the very beginning of the podcast is rewrite the mission. Yeah. Rewrite our focal point and understand clean slate and understand what that is. And so whereas the mission statement when I first started Charlie Bird was probably like serve great food, drink great wine, listen to great music, like just really basic, simple kind of thing. Yeah. Now it's about so much more than that, and so we're kind of refining what we're doing, but it's dream big, serve compassionately. Yeah, and
I like that.
My goal is to get all of our employees, past employees, people who are in the neighborhood who just like the restaurant, to be inspired by that and to remove the barriers, dream big, do things, go out of your comfort zone, do what it is that you really want to do in life, right. Follow that. And so I think that where we are now in our industry has changed significantly from the reason I came to New York. Yeah. And I think that's a really great thing, to be able to collaborate and to go to a guy like Adam and be like, man, you are incredible. You're doing great things. Like, come work with us. Come work with me. Let's do something together. Let's collaborate on some stuff. Let's do some projects together. And so, so we're really excited about that and the things that we can create as a team, when you kind of remove some of those barriers and say, it's not about the food. It's not about the wine. It's about this compassion.
It's become so much more.
Yeah, that you really want to do something, more for everybody. And so it's selfless. I think that's the goal is that when everyone wins, everyone wins. Right.
Yes.
And I think that's
I like that concept a lot more than one person winning and everybody else hates the guy who's winning.
Well, this goes back to like, let's put your face on the cover of a magazine and make you super famous, and then the ego gets involved, and then it's about that one person, and But I think that at the core, you have to teach people to be good people, and through education and a whole bunch of other things. But I think in some small way, hospitality, that's what it's guiding. That's what it's hoping for. It's a furthering education to put other people first. Yeah. And if you can do that and kind of soothe the ego in a sense and say, look, I'm not going to try and control your life. I'm going to try and help your life. I'm going to try and make you have a good time and remove barriers, for you. And so that's our guiding principle right now. And I think that's what I'm most excited about right now in New York.
I'm excited just as well. So I need to hear it.
Yeah.
Craziest, best, outlandish New York experience. Ooh. I know you've been grinding since the minute you pretty much walked through New York, but you've had some times. I've heard about some holiday parties with good old J and Bay. Maybe it's a couple you can release if you're legally able to.
Man, that's interesting. That's a great question. We've had some wild times. I mean, I'll be honest. I've made scrambled eggs on a private jet in a microwave, with black truffles. And
you put black truffles in the microwave?
Yeah. I mean, what else are you got nowhere to cook up there. You're gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna take it out, scramble, and put it back. I've done some pretty wild things, through some holiday parties. Certainly, as we've come to New York, we've drank some incredible wines along the way, and eaten some really great food. It's hard for me to put a finger, honestly, on any one thing that's like a top moment.
Yeah.
This is going to sound maybe the anti of that, but as you know, I'm always trying to go against that.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty quiet person. I'm a pretty private person,
Yeah.
Personally, and so I tend to stay, as much as I think social media has changed the world for good and for bad. I think it's incredible, and we're actually partnering with a social media company to do our next project in
Cool.
Bumble. Shout out to Bumble. But I think I stay off of social media a lot, and I because I believe that your actions should be what lead people, not necessarily your loud voice.
Right.
And so with that, maybe my most memorable experience is one July 4th. Maybe it was 2014 or 15. We always close on every holiday. We try to.
I loved it.
At DHG, right? We try and close the major holidays. Sometimes we can't, depending on which day of the week it is. But we try to. And I took my wife to Charlie Bird, unlocked the place, turned the lights on, and I went and made her an omelet. And just made her like a perfect omelet. We had a little salad, a little omelet. And we just sat at a table by ourselves, put some music on, lit a candle, had dinner, and then we went up on the roof and watched the fireworks. And,
nice.
And to have that ability in New York City, to have that privacy, to be able to have that exclusivity is worth more to me than partying with a celebrity or, having, the VMAs all show up at Pasquale Jones after the words and be like, oh my God, like, which Kardashian? They did what? Kind of thing. And, those kind of things are extraordinary and they're fun and, those kind of things. But I have to say, because of my personality and who I am, I really, really, really cherish that private time. And so that's, one of the most memorable things to me. It's harder to do now. The restaurants kind of stay open. It's a little bit more of a challenge to do. And so I would say that's one of my favorites.
That sounds good to me. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that because the city can be so loud, so in your face. But to have an opportunity to be, especially in a space where there's lots of seats, but it's just you, rooftop fireworks, just you and your lady, priceless. You can't go wrong with that.
I think you have to be appreciative of those moments when you get to party, with the stars, and you're just like, oh, I can't even believe the night that I just had. You mentally take those snapshots. Right. But the ones that maybe are the most impactful are, when you can kind of take a backward look in maturity and say, like, these are the ones you're going to take with you later in life.
Right. Ones you look back on.
Yeah.
Like when you said when you're 70, 80.
Exactly.
Just like
reflecting on life, maybe.
That one stuck with me a lot more than taking shots in in Mother's Ruin at 1:30 in the morning.
That's right.
Yeah.
Ooh, I remember that one. That was good.
Yeah. That was my.
The shots just kept showing up that night. I don't even know if anybody paid for them.
I have no idea what happened.
Yeah.
I just know I got home safely. I turned around. So, what do you? Out of all this, hate to get like serious again, but it's like I do want to see like kind of where your head's at when you feel like what are you bringing to the table? I know you say you're a little more personal, you're a little more on the business side, you're focused, you're really into like communal base. Is it that mindset or that approach that's going to keep you in a different lane from everybody else? Like, will you see yourself maybe being recognized in the same lane as Danny Meyer? Danny Meyer created, when we were out in school, he was pretty much like the Bible. Like you read his stuff. Yeah. Do you want to get to that point?
He still is. Yeah. I mean, he still is. Listen, I think that he's a once in a lifetime. I mean, there's been several others that are in great restaurateurs. Jean-Georges, I got to throw him out there. Daniel Boulud, incredible. Right. People, just legends. And many others that, too numerous to name. But I think for me, I can't even imagine my name in the same conversation as Danny, obviously, or DHG's name in the same conversation as his group, But I think what I'm most excited about is really staying hungry. Really stay thirsty for that hospitality, for that passion, for what your staff gives you, because they give you so much energy.
Yeah.
I think that we're going to continue to push our brands and really try and create an environment for people to grow.
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest thing in our industry. Is the rap on our industry is that it's been a very difficult environment to work and survive, particularly if you're a woman, particularly if you're someone of a minority or of color.
Yeah.
Where
you have to do double.
You got to do double the work
just to
right?
be in the same
That's
position as
terrible.
somebody who's doing
it's stupid, and it's so antiquated.
Yeah.
It
Story
just
of
seems
my life,
it seems so dumb to
Yeah.
me, and I just feel like I'm excited by the people who we are working with. Our whole executive team is all just great women, which has been really amazing. And I think that the knock has always been that the hospitality industry kind of burns up people's youth, right? So 10 years go by, you didn't become the actor you hoped to be, you didn't go to graduate school, you didn't, complete your doctorate or, whatever it is, and suddenly you're in your mid-30s or your 40s, all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, what else am I going to do now? I can't start a career now. And so I think that's been the knock for years, everything else aside. And
that's a whole nother
that's
segment.
a whole nother hashtag. But I think what I set out to do, what I am setting out to do, and I think what other people, I think the real genius of people like Danny and people like that was they created opportunity. They created opportunity for people. They said, you're a great person. I'm going to create a space for you in the business, and this is how we're going to expand it. And so I think opportunity comes in multiple ways, but one of the things that I really want is I want everyone to benefit from the success of any business. Right?
Yeah.
If you go to work at some IT brand, you get shares of stock, and then as the business does well, you do really well. And if you leave that company, you still have the stock. Like, you still have something in it for all those years you put into it. And so that's something that I'm really curious about doing, is changing the model of the restaurant business as we know it.
I like that. People
don't just come and work for you for a year and then leave. They own it. They literally are part of it.
Right.
And it's the only way we can actually build a sustainable living, is not just to make minimum wage for a period of time. And you may be a great artist at it, but where do you go from there? If you don't get exposed to somebody who's going to back you to open your own restaurant, what do you do after 10 years of being a cook or a sous chef or something like that? So that's what I want to do. I want to start that. That's part of it. We started this foundation this year, which I'm really excited about, called the Dream Big Foundation.
It's awesome.
Thank you. And it is funded by DHG and kind of our actions in there, and it's to promote entrepreneurial spirit with our employees. So we have a fund, and people can apply for these scholarships to start their own things. Start their own podcast, start their own political mission. Doesn't have to be a physical thing. And so we're excited about that. I think that people need a community to work within where it's not just a paycheck.
Yeah.
I think anymore. First it was a paycheck, and then it was about more of a paycheck, and then it was about benefits, and then it was about equal, right, et cetera. It's like, but it's more than that. I think we have tried in our industry to figure out a way to equal the playing field between front of house and back of house, and there's just no real easy way to do it in terms of pay, quote unquote. But the other way to do it is to really look at it and say, yeah, you may make less money now, but you have worked into an environment where you now have benefits that are exceeding just health insurance.
Yeah.
These are opportunities, and that's worth more than gold.
Right, exactly. It's opportunities, everything. Even if they fail, they had it.
Yeah.
They were. Everybody needs that chance to become it.
Yeah.
If you are, it's great. If you don't, that's life. Either you make it or you don't.
Yeah.
And but to have it is monumental.
But you want people to have a shot, and that's the thing, and that's what we're most excited about. Is like, if you get your shot and you wasted it because you didn't do the homework, it's like Eminem says, you only get one shot, and you got to take it, and you got to be prepared for it, and you need to not waste it. And I think that's all of us. And I don't care whether you're Michael Jordan, I don't care whether you're Jay-Z, I don't care whether you're you or I or anybody else. politician, whatever, they got to that one election and they managed to get an office, whatever it was. And so I think that what you do with it once you get it is up to you. And, and if you squander that, well, then you're going to figure out the next step, kind of thing. So, so that's what I'm excited about, and trying to figure out how we can help our communities, because we talked about it earlier, but we're in a difficult world right now, and everyone is shouting and everyone's screaming, and we're not in unison. It's a difficult time.
Yeah.
And I think what we can do is control, right? Yeah. We can control ourselves. We can control our own emotions, and we can control our own actions. And so if you can put your own actions into work, if you're not happy about something, then shout about it, but shout about it, write letters. Go show up at town hall meetings. Go show up down at City Hall is what I'm trying to say, like you did. Let's go do your thing, go do your part, and then most of all, change within. If you don't believe in that anymore, stop buying it. Just stop doing it. Yeah. It's amazing how much everybody wants to talk about saving small business, but yet so many of us don't. In a way, we still shop on the internet. I do it myself, and so you try and either buy what's necessary, not what's extravagant if you don't need it, and if you can buy it from somebody who their name, it's probably a good idea. Try that, and
pay full price. Don't ask for the hookup.
Always ask for the discount, or pay what it's worth. I think those are good things. So I think show restraint on some of those things.
Yeah,
it's worthwhile.
Totally get that.
Yeah.
So I do have to say, this has been an amazing conversation, Chef. I'm telling you, the opportunity to be able to sit down and have this conversation with you, to have this luxurious space.
Thank you.
This great acoustic environment, this lovely equipment. That's all awesome. Because of you and Agatha as well.
Yeah.
Pushed me towards the limit. You guys gave me the resources.
That's awesome, man.
To create, and
we're
doing it.
Yeah.
We're keeping the legs moving.
I love it.
We're not stopping.
It's so cool.
We have dreams to go higher. This is only the beginning.
Yeah.
We spoke earlier about hey, look what we're doing.
Yeah.
Just take a look.
Yeah.
And take note, and look at yourself later. And I thank you completely. And I want to give you this time to plug in once again some more projects. Anybody
thank
you want to shout out?
Thank
You've been doing shout outs this whole time. You can centralize it. I'll give you that time. That's all you.
Thanks, man. I'm sure there are people I forgot out there, but you know what? I mean, we're supporting not only families. We're obviously donating to charities left and right to try and support Milwaukee Freedom Fund, certainly ACLU and NAACP and so many others that we've come across, and we're like, we think this is really great. People need to get behind this. And we've really shifted based on some feedback that we had from some of our employees. We've really shifted our voice in terms of who we are and who we think leadership should become. And we're not perfect. I think that's the key there is understanding and learning, and that you never stop learning.
Right.
And so
never.
It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what nationality you are, the color of your skin, the sex you are. You have to take a pause and think selflessly towards the world. And no matter our plights, we can get through this, and we will get through it. And you sometimes have to turn around and look back at where you have come from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, to say, we have made progress. Not nearly as much as we should have, but we've made tremendous progress, and you can't lose sight of that, and then use that as momentum to go forward. And so my shout out is for that, is for the world, is for the industry, the hospitality industry. May we get better. May we be stronger. May we be more responsible and more inclusive, along the way. And so I'm picking up that banner. I'm challenging my fellow hospitality restaurateurs and whatnot to do the same, and put your actions, where your mouth is.
Right.
And I think that's just it's not just great business. It's great friendship. It's great love, and keep the passion alive. So that's it.
Yeah. So, Chef, I'll raise my glass to you.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Do you have a cheers for us?
Oh yeah. Here's to sunnier times, but a lot of great memories here.
Yeah.
This restaurant legacy will come back. Pasquale Jones, and
that's a first. That's fresh off
the
press.
Right? I know, exactly. And so many others will too. And from those restaurants that didn't make it, here's to all of you for all the blood, sweat, and tears that go into it every single day, for the line cooks, for the dishwashers, for the servers, for the glass polishers, for the bartenders, for the managers, for the stewards, and all the people that it takes to create. This is to all of you, because I think it's such a magical thing. A restaurant is a living, breathing thing that is way more than the sum of its parts.
Right.
And when it's right, it's magic. And so here's to the magic, man. Cheers.
Cheers.
Love it.
Yes, sir.
Lovely. Delicious.
Yeah.
Cedric, Rosie, great wine. You don't tear.
Wine was great with the conversation.
Yeah.
I think
cool.
it was perfect. Great way. So, Chef, you know the drill. You know how we do it around here. If you're so kind to take us out.
So I'm always nervous when I do the takeout that I'm gonna mess the timing up. For those of you who don't know, we do a single clap, take us out. It's kind of reminiscent of a sports team, and shout out to Peter Andrew out there. Pete, if you made it all the way through the podcast to the very end, you're in luck, because Pete and Arvid, our wine director and incredible friend, world's best sommelier, was a big part of launching Legacy Records, and Pete also was there. And so Pete was a collegiate and a professional basketball player, and so we had we had a little bit of sports in there. Takes a special person. Anyway, we do one single clap just to get everybody on the same page. So let's do it.
Let's do it.
3, 2, 1.
Nice.
I love it. Perfect. Nailed it
every time. Yeah, so good. Veterans in the game.